Alright guys, I want you to take a look at something. See this area right here? This is what's known as a paper street. And those asking, what is a paper street? According to Wikipedia, a paper street is a road or street that is shown on the map but has not been built. It can happen when a developer or city planner lays out a street but never builds it, or if a proposed road is not used by the public for 21 years. After 21 years, the municipality is not allowed to accept the road, and the property reverts to the surrounding property owners. However, if the township pays and maintains the road, it can be an official township road. But in my community, in this community, it's what can happen. But the question is, why are they here, and what's the city planning to do about it, even though there's a city ordinance about it? With the full details, here is my really good friend, Tony Halamir.
Ever heard of the city doing something like that before?
David Loeb is a former Corpus Christi council member and planning commissioner. He was confused after seeing this since-deleted Facebook post that showed city crew trucks clearing out some brush near Dove Lane.
We went to take a look at it to see, whose property is which. Is it another property owner, or is it actually city property? As I said, it turned out to be city property, so we found a way to take care of it.
Turns out this area is privately owned by MVR Construction, but a portion of it belongs to the city. Loeb argues that this still isn't right.
The city has an ordinance that makes property owners responsible for maintaining the right-of-way in terms of landscaping and things like that.
The city remains adamant that this is their responsibility and that the ordinance deals with solid waste only.
I don't understand how you would make a decision to do that on a lot where the legality or the necessity of the city doing it is dubious. There are thousands upon thousands of homes and businesses that are next to a city street that has not been very well maintained.
I reached out to Public Works about how they prioritize this specific case.
So is it as simple as someone picking up the phone saying, hey, I see this brush?
That's how we got called out. Yeah, we got a phone call in. They're complaining about the surrounding neighbor, complaining of overgrown vegetation on their property.
An answer. Loeb questioned.
There's a fence on one end of it, so I don't know, who called?
I reached out to MVR Construction, the owner of the property, but the company declined to comment. From Flower Bluff, I'm your neighborhood news reporter, Tony Jaramillo, Chris 6 News.
It's like their attitude. We own the property, but we won't say a damn thing. That's exactly what happened. And, if you own something for 21 years, it's not built for 21 years, then they can take it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I looked it up before researching. I did my research. I do my homework. And if you don't believe that I do my homework, well, would this pop up? After 21 years, it's not allowed to accept the road. But the owners, the crews have been working on the developer's property. But no one will ever know if it will be finished or whose property will it be. Would it be the owner of the Deathly Hollows? Would it be the owner of Lord Voldemort? I gotta stop making Harry Potter references. But we have to make sure something like this does not ever happen again. Because if it does, we gotta make sure of it, And if you own after 21 years, then you can still have it. But you gotta make sure that stuff like this does not ever happen again. And I don't know about owning something or owning the road or whatever, but it probably can and will happen depending on what you know and how you know it. Take a look at this. There's the trial of the Big Bad Wolf as they hold a mock trial of the Big Bad Wolf.
Some courtroom drama played out inside Corpus Christi's federal courtroom this morning, and we were there to capture it all on camera. Take a look.
I really only went to request a cup of sugar.
I'll huff and I'll puff and I'll blow your house down.
That was some of the riveting testimony in the case of the state versus the Big Bad Wolf. Mr. Wolf was on trial for the murder of the two little pigs. The courtroom was packed with media and spectators as the surviving little piggy and other witnesses testified. And the verdict was?
Big Bad Wolf is guilty of murder.
You've probably figured out this was not a real trial. This mock trial was held at the federal courthouse to show kids how the court system works. Area school kids played the part of the judge, spectators, jury, and the media. The defendant and the witnesses were played by students from Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
You take a court test, and the results of the court test are you are guilty. But if that was real, though, if that was a real trial, the wolf would have been begging on one bended knee like an Oliver Twist. Please, sir, I want some more, sir. Would ask for more. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Alright. Susan Smith. Did that even sound familiar to you? Well, how about her having sex with a guard? How does that sound to you? If that sounds unappetizing to you for your appetite, when we return, we'll have the exclusive interview with the guard who had sex with Susan Smith prior to her parole hearing. Later on, we're going to hear from the father, and we're going to break down the case as we begin our special Susan Smith 30 years later. Please stay with us. Wednesday, we brought you part of the story of Susan Smith. It was 30 years ago when she was arrested for murdering her two children. If you don't remember, she was arrested for murdering her two children after she reported them missing. But when the police got involved, they found out it was a murder scene. The motive for the murder, because Susan had an affair. But there's probably more to this. We also showed you her parole meeting as to where it was denied because of all the people that say, I want this, I want that. Tonight, there's more to the case. And a bit later on, we're going to have the exclusive interview with the prison inmate who speaks out for the very first time since he was accused of having sex with Susan Smith. I mean, Susan Smith having sex with that prison guard. It wasn't an inmate, it was a prison guard. If I had to correct myself. But to get you up to speed, we're going to crack the case on this. From one of the detectives who, in a press conference, told the media about what happened. Here's John Quinones.
We've had people call in from all over that have been very moved and stated they knew where they were the day that the President Kennedy was shot. They knew where they were the day that Challenger blew up, and they will never forget the day of the announcement of these two children. Have you cried over this case? Yes.
Howard Wells and Robert Stewart solved a mystery that for 9 days shocked us all. It was a case of their careers, but there was no cause for celebration.
We're going to make a brief announcement.
I don't think I will ever forget. I was standing by the sheriff's side
Statement is it.
when the sheriff advised the news media as to what had happened.
Susan Smith has been arrested and will be charged with 2 counts of murder in connection with the deaths of her children.
And the gasp from that crowd when the announcement was made, I don't think I'll ever forget that.
Last night, Wells, the Union County Sheriff, and Stewart, Chief of the State Police, revealed for the first time the inner workings of their investigation. They agreed to talk to Primetime, but only in the presence of the county prosecutor.
Your primary concern is the children, always. Never anything different.
You believe the story that first night?
I believe what someone tells me until I have reason to disbelieve.
By now, we all know Susan Smith's story. carjacker abducts her children, but releases her near a lake just outside of town. It seemed like it couldn't happen to a nicer girl, voted friendliest in her high school class, a doting mother, and above all, credible. More than most people in this town of 10,000, the sheriff had good reason to believe Susan Smith.
Sheriff, you were the godfather to her brother's children. How difficult does this make it for you to continue with your investigation?
I hurt with them, and I actually felt their feelings of despair, their devastation, and I feel with that family because of their loss.
And so they searched every way they could, by helicopter, on horseback, even underwater.
We are ground zero with an investigation.
72 hours later, no suspect, no car, no children, nothing to corroborate Susan Smith's story.
I related throwing a rock into the water. Right after it first happens, you have ripples, and once they go away, it's hard to find where the rock was from.
They didn't know how close they were.
If a small child disappears, you don't just search the woods, search the neighborhood. You interview family members.
Ernie Allen is director of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's happened 34 times in just 12 years, he says. Mothers who report the abduction of their children only to be accused of murdering them themselves. The center has developed a set of guidelines that are now being mailed to 17,000 law enforcement agencies across the country. The advice to police: always assume every child reported missing is in immediate danger. Search the child's home, even if he's disappeared somewhere else. Move quickly to give the victim's parents polygraph tests. And always conduct what police call parallel investigations.
You take the information that is provided about the abductor or the circumstances of the missing child, and you pursue it, but simultaneously, you interview family members.
Sheriff Wells had an advanced copy of those guidelines.
Not only did we work this case, but we lived this case. We ran a parallel investigation. We ran all the what ifs. If it didn't happen, as you said, how could it have happened? And we lived this case day to day just for the hopes of the children.
As he examined Susan Smith's story, the sheriff began to notice inconsistencies.
For example, Smith told police she and her boys were carjacked while they waited for a red light at this intersection, and that there were no witnesses. The problem is this light turns red only when another car approaches the cross street. Smith said there were no other cars. Her story became less and less convincing, and yet she persisted.
They were crying, and my other child was crying for me. He said, he said, well, my mama, and he said, Mom, where you going? And I told her, I said, baby, I gotta go, and she's gonna be okay. And I told him I loved him, and I hollered I loved him.
We watched very carefully, and then we carefully analyzed those images.
What would you look for?
Mannerisms, body language, the way things are phrased, what points a person voluntarily chooses to bring up.
In another case in Florida last month, it was the way she phrased things that caught Pauline Zile. She went on television in a tearful plea for her 7-year-old daughter, Christina.
Christina, be home soon.
She disappeared, the mother claimed, while they visited a flea market.
One of the things that I thought stood out was how she referred to her in the past tense, which immediately I thought, this is odd for a mother who's looking for her child.
Detective Sue Edwards says if you think your child is alive, you wouldn't say she was a good little girl. Zile eventually implicated her husband. Both are now charged with murder.
Sheriff, you had your suspicions, and yet you never let on that you had doubts about her story.
Suspicion's not evidence. It's not fact, and it's nothing more than that. You cannot use it in court. You cannot convict anyone with it. And I deal in evidence and fact in a day-to-day law enforcement career.
How do you know when a person is lying?
You either prove it through evidence that shows it, or you have them admit to it.
Stewart and Wells also used a lie detector. Later, it was leaked to the press that Susan Smith was having problems with the question, do you know where your sons are?
I do not deny nor confirm a story that has anything to do with a polygraph test or its results.
The inconsistencies multiplied. Smith claimed that in the hours before the carjacking, she had taken her sons shopping to the local Walmart, but nobody here remembered seeing them. She said she was carjacked on her way to this neighborhood, where she planned to visit a friend, but the friend wasn't expecting her. He wasn't even home. And what about the suspect? Although they do a composite sketch, police have their doubts that he ever existed.
And in this day and time, I'm sad to say, the public immediately wants to think that a suspect is a stranger lurking in the shadows, a predator ready to strike. We have approximately 400 murders in South Carolina every year. 3/4 of those murders are either family members or acquaintances of the victim.
3/4.
3/4.
It's got to be very difficult to start suspecting the parent.
Well, it's not a matter whether it's difficult or not. It's just something you have to do a thorough investigation.
What they really were trying to do is to get her to continually tell the story over and over again. And each time she tells it just a little bit different.
Philadelphia Police Chief Inspector William Bergman has perfected the technique. In the past 5 years, his department has solved 3 similar cases by wearing down the mother in a friendly way. Eventually, the suspect, as in the case of Etta Mumford, gets caught up in her own web of deceit.
We took her down to get her a polygraph, and as we were about to hook her up to the machine, she said, "I think I better talk to you," and talked about what she did with the child. She actually had cut the child up and packed the child away in a freezer, which was in the basement of her house, pushed in the corner that we had missed the first time we went through the house.
In the case of Susan Smith, it was her national television appearances last Thursday that made it clear, even to our expert in Philadelphia, that she was lying.
Did he tell you why he was taking the children?
No, sir, he did not. There was very little communication at all.
She says very little, very few details.
That's right. In fact, she's real short because she keeps saying to herself, "I've told this story so many times. I really wonder what I said before. And every time I go to talk about this, am I going to lie a little bit more?" I was watching her sitting there, her eyes started to roll and things of this nature. So I would think the law enforcement people here probably wanted her to go in here and probably wanted to look at her on TV, talking about the incident, see how she's reacting, see how she's talking.
She doesn't look like a killer. She's a murderer.
She's a murderer. And just like we sit here shocked, everybody that saw this on national TV saying the same thing. How could you do that? How could you say, look at the way she acted and she's a murderer?
Do you ever say to them, "We think you're lying"?
I wouldn't say so.
Why not?
I wouldn't say that to a person until I was killed.
But just hours after that final television appearance, Sheriff Wells was sure enough to bring Susan Smith to her moment of truth. And he did it in part by using a time-honored police technique, the bluff.
Primetime has learned that the sheriff took Smith to a church and told her he had proof that she was lying, and that the inconsistencies in her story would soon become public knowledge. That's when this 23-year-old mother confessed.
Susan, why did you do it? Susan, why?
She admitted that on the night of October 25th, she let her car with her babies inside roll into the lake. A Mazda and 2 tiny bodies were recovered. Sheriff Wells immediately boarded a helicopter for his next and toughest assignment of all, to tell a close friend that his nephews were dead and that their mother would be charged with murder.
The loss of 2 small children that the entire family loves, that's utter devastation, and I can feel with them and I share with them in their loss.
As for the scene of the crime, the lake is now a memorial to the children.
People go there just to see it. People from miles and miles away. Flowers are placed there on a regular basis. People that come so emotionally involved in the case want to go to some place or be with something that is associated with the case.
Wow. So now that we cracked the case, what happened 30 years later? What's been going on? Coming up, the guard. Coming up while Susan Smith was in prison, she had sex with the former guard, the former prison guard. He now speaks out and tells his side of the story. Then still ahead, the father of Susan Susan Smith's husband speaks out prior to the parole hearing. What do you have to say? Don't go away. Welcome back to this Give Me a Break special. Susan Smith, 30 years later. We cracked the case by going through what happened years earlier, with all the evidence being played out. She murdered her 2 children, drowned them in a lake. Now a lot's been happening prior to her parole. Tonight, for the very first time, you're going to hear this prison guard tell his side of the story and why he says that that she is not ready for parole, even though she had sex with this captain. In a Give Me a Break exclusive, you would be the judge. What does he think about Susan Smith? How is she now? And will there ever be condolences? If and when 2026 would happen, when she is eligible again for parole? Is she going to change since then? Or is something bad going to happen, or something like this going to ever happen again when she's when she's still in jail? Take a look.
When and how did you meet Susan Smith?
I first met Susan Smith probably my second or third night on duty at the Women's Center. She had come up for medication call, which was done every afternoon or evening at 6 p.m. for the nighttime. And we always had to have somebody there to watch over them, make sure they took their medicine. Medication was dumped into their hand out of a little medicine cup, and somebody had to watch them swallow it, and then check to make sure they swallowed. And so that's the first time I saw Susan Smith, was at medication calls.
Were you aware of what she was charged with at that time and kind of some of the history, having lived in South Carolina?
Yes, I was very much aware of her, along with several other ladies that were there, what their charges were. When you have somebody murder a child in South Carolina, it hits the news instantly.
Is that viewed different among inmates versus other crimes?
In the male institutions, yes. I didn't see it in the female institution. I didn't see Susan being treated any different than somebody there for drug charges. At one point in time, her cellmate was also charged with killing her husband, and was serving life. That she had been there 10 or 15 years, and nobody treated her different either. I can't think of the girl's name now that killed the autistic boy in Eastover back in 95, 96. She was treated just like anybody else. So if that had been at a male institution, we'd have probably had one or two instances where, when they first got into general population, that they were taught that children are to be left alone.
Did she had issues?
Oh, yes.
During her incarceration?
She had quite a few, especially in the later years. Mainly after I left. Her disciplinary record is extensive, and the online record only begins in 2011, when they started digitizing all of it into the what they call the CRT system and public access. But before that, I know her file was, even in 95, was pretty thick, because back then we kept paper files on everybody, and they had to travel with them, even if they went to a medical appointment. That paper file had to go with them. So hers had already started to gain quite a bit of paperwork in it. A lot of it was dealing with her mental and medical issues, but and the different trips to different facilities for treatment.
That's not uncommon, and that continues even today.
Even today, it continues. Anyone can go public access to the South Carolina Department of Corrections and view an inmate and what's on file. And one of the other things, other than disciplinary record, is their what they call transfer record. And she has numerous trips to different facilities for medicals. And that could be for anything. If she needed a tooth filled, there's dentists only at 2 or 3 different institutions, so they would have to be carried to one of those places to get a tooth fixed.
You mentioned how you first met her, but it seems like you had more of a relationship with her. How did that start?
Over the first year, the females started, all of them would open up to me and talk to me. They become more comfortable with me being there so they could complain. They knew I would listen and then try and deal with their complaints, which was my job. And they said other captains and lieutenants would maybe just hear what they said or pretend to hear and go on. They wouldn't do anything, but you actually do something. And so Susan was one of them that would come to me and say, we're having this problem in the dorm with this officer on this shift, or there's these 2 girls are constantly bickering or fighting at night, or whatever the case may be. She just started coming to me more often with those types of, well, I guess complaints or informational pieces that I would have to look into. And she would actually talk to me about things that were going on in other units other than her own, because of people talking to her, because they felt like she was more in tune with the staff members to get things done.
How was she seen through other inmates? Was she seen as a leader?
I guess a leader would be a good word for it. She had quite a following from what I could see. Everybody liked her for the most part. There might have been 1 or 2 that didn't, but it wasn't for what she done to get into prison. I'm sure it was something that she may have said or done to them while they were incarcerated together. But she had quite a following of ladies.
What do you think made people want to follow her?
Susan had a characteristic about her that just made her friendly, approachable, and likable. She was always happy. I can't say that I ever saw her in a sad or depressed mood. Now, occasionally she would talk about how she wished she was in a different unit, maybe because she was unhappy with what was happening in hers, but she was in a unit that specialized. Everyone in the unit had some type of mental issue that needed to be watched closer. You had to do more checks on their individual cells in that unit to make sure they weren't attempting suicide or, I guess, body deforming, or because a lot of times they would be cutters or they would try and hang themselves just for attention, not to actually kill themselves, but just to get attention seekers.
So it sounds like it started off with the kind of being able to bend your ear on what was happening within the facility. When did it become something more?
I'd say about 16, 17 months into my time there. We had a staff death that occurred. My supervisor, the major, who was over all of security for the institution, suddenly passed away. Nobody knew he was even ill. From what we understood, he did not know that he was sick. And he took a couple weeks off because he felt tired and never returned. And he was the one that the ladies really bent the ear of. He was the one that always listened to every complaint, took everyone's complaint serious, and that's what he instructed me to do when I came on. He was a retired New York City police officer of 30 years. And so he knew how to deal with people, and he could relate to these people because of what he done in New York. Drug charges, homicides, assault and battery. He saw it every night, and he knew how to talk and listen and react to what was being said from these ladies. And quite a few of them took it pretty hard. They even had a memorial service at the institution for the girls or ladies. Some of them act like big babies, others that grown and mature, depending on what they wanted. So they could change in a conversation on one heartbeat to the next of how they were acting. But once he passed away, Susan started coming to me and just talking about, I guess, issues, personal issues, how she was sad and disappointed in him not telling everyone that he was sick. And from what I knew, he didn't even know he was sick, but the girls weren't aware of that, and they didn't need to be told that part. But that's when it started being more. And in August of 2000 is when she started approaching me and talking about having sex, and how that she had been having sex, but she didn't specify. I thought she was talking about with her roommate, because her roommate had suddenly changed, and I thought she was sad because her roommate had, and they had been having sex. But no, she was talking about another officer that had just recently stopped seeing her all of a sudden for no reason. Come to find out it was for another inmate. And which I understand he finally married once he was terminated and she got out. A few weeks after that, they were married. And that really hit Susan hard.
She turned to you for comfort?
Well, that happened just a couple of days before I was terminated. We had already had our relationship start. And I guess that's what she was doing, was turning to me as the replacement to that, even though I kind of thought it was replacement for one of the other girls. But it turned out it was for him. She initiated contact. She pursued it vigorously. And every time I was on duty, she would bring it up until it happened.
What do you say to those that say you share in some responsibility?
The responsibility is a 50-50 split in my mind. She's responsible because she knew better than to have relations with any staff member. It's laid out in their inmate handbook that they're issued the first day they arrive at the South Carolina Department of Corrections Intake Center. And they're told to read it, learn it, and know it, and never lose it. And if something changes, they're immediately collected from everybody and exchanged one for one so that they've got the newest and latest version. So she knew better, but I was trained from the start not to get involved with inmates, not to fall for their request for things to be brought to them. And it was starting to get to the point that where more and more officers were carrying huge sacks under the arm, called the sack phone, to work, and not to let inmates use them because recording of their phone calls had already been initiated for every phone call, not just a random sampling, but every phone call was recorded. And so I knew better, she knew better. Responsibilities both ways. And probably even a little bit more my way because I was the one with the most to lose and the one with the authority to stop it, and should have. So it might even be more of a 60-40 split with me on the 60 side.
Why give in to her?
Her personality, the way she talked and approached, her reassurance that it would be our secret for life. But she knew one day I would leave, and I was working on some career moves outside of corrections, and a lot of people knew that. Susan probably had caught wind of it, but needless to say, none of that become possible after being terminated because my career in law enforcement immediately ended.
And it did end after it did end. We should point out that Susan Smith's parole has been denied. When we come back, the husband speaks out for the very first time. But first, we have the first interview with the full interview with the sheriff who recalls Susan Smith, who recalls the arrest. So stay with us. Tonight we have a Giving Rick special all about 30 years since Susan Smith has been charged for murdering her 2 kids after drowning them in a lake. So far we heard from the detectives from the very first time. Now we're going to hear from, we also heard from the former captain who had sex with Susan Smith. Now, for the very first time, you're going to hear from the South Carolina sheriff as he recalls the first ever Susan Smith interview. Here's that full interview.
It shed a bad light on Union. It's something that everybody's going to always remember. I mean, I'm sure for years to come they're going to still remember that. But you know, it's something that we have to put behind us and move forward as a community. And we know it's bad and it happened, but you know, we have to forgive. Don't mean we have to forget it, but we will forgive.
Is that tough when these anniversaries come up? I imagine 10, 20, 25. Yeah, now we're at 30.
Well, it's tough. I mean, because you know it's brought up again. But I mean, it's got to be tougher on David. You know, because he's had to live with this all his life now, and I'm sure it's tough on him to have it, you know, brought up again and bring back old memories and stuff. But you know, I know he's had to move on, but you're not going to forget it. Never will.
Has Union County moved on from it?
Union County has grown, you know, since that. You know, it took a while to get back on path, you know, get back to to some type of normalcy that we had to have. And once we got back, you know, we've grown over the years, and like I said, the people, they haven't forgot about it, but they've moved on. And it's for a while it held Union back, I feel like, but you know, like I said, as time changes and we go on and put it in the past, and it helps us move forward and be a better community.
Is this a tight-knit community? Is this the type of community where, like, maybe even before this incident, a lot of people would have known Susan and David Smith here in town?
It is. It's like that. I mean, this in Union County, just about everybody knows everybody. It's close kin to somebody. So it's you know, it's a real close community. You know, we've got our population around 28,000 people, and we're a big county, but we're spread out land mass. But you know, as far as the communities go, you know, people you see everybody, and you pretty well know just about everybody, and that's why everybody knew her family, and it was a lot of emotions from people who knew her, and so that was a big thing.
I guess I should have asked, did you know Susan? Did you know David before any of this?
No, I didn't know Susan. Actually, David worked in Winn-Dixie, and at that time I had a part-time business, and we took care of that area, and I knew who he was when he worked there. That was all I knew about him.
After Susan Smith, there was Andrea Yates. You know, there have been other big cases. Like, how do we impress upon people that there are resources, like, you don't have to go to these lengths?
Right.
You know, even today.
Yeah, and there's so many organizations out there now to help with mental illness, whether it be, you know, Department of Mental Health or our faith-based community. Our faith-based community is big in Union, and it's all over too, but those folks there are willing to help and work with those people who's having troubled times. But sometimes you can have all the help in the world, but some people just got the meanness in their heart, you know, and they'll claim mental illness, but it's just, they're mean. That's just bottom line, you know. Whether she had a mental illness, I don't know. She seemed pretty normal to me up until that point. So I can't think of anything that would ever make me take the lives of my children. I mean, I can't even fathom that. I mean, I don't understand how you can do that, because my kids are important to me, and all kids are important to their parents. And so I don't know how I don't really think you can claim a mental health situation in her case. Now, I'm sure there are some out there. There's definitely some out there, and I'm sure they've been diagnosed, and they have had the testing or whatever they're going to do to say that. But, you know, but there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of organizations that will help people with mental issues.
So is this just cold, brutal murder?
I can't say whether I'm not a doctor. I can't tell you whether she had a mental illness or not, but I mean, I just think it takes a cold-hearted person to watch that happen. That's my opinion, and I just don't see how you could do it, because I would have, even if you did something like that and they went into that water, your instinct would be go get them. I would have died trying to get them. That's the way I look at it. I mean, if my kids were been in that situation, whether I helped it or it's an accident or whatever, I would have went in. I'd probably died with them trying to get them.
We talked a little bit. There were a lot of conspiracy theories and stuff like that. Kind of when all of this happened, of course there were searches done. There was a search at the lake. They just didn't think the car had made it that far, right?
Right. Yeah, they actually searched it one time before, and then I guess it's just they didn't account for the flotation of the vehicle and taking it further out, and so I think that's why it was missed the first time. They didn't locate it. So, but you know, the technology we have today with the underwater drones and stuff like that, if we would have had that in '94, then it might have been a different case. We might have found them sooner. You know, they wouldn't have been alive, but we would have found them sooner. But you know, they give us every resource in Union County that I'm aware of, and I'm sure, you know, Sheriff Wells will tell you the same thing. It was made available to the sheriff's office at the time for every resource, whether it was military or state or federal, you know, assets. I'm sure they were offered.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's one change, that technology and everything has progressed. Are there other changes that you kind of see in the community since when this happened that might help in a situation today?
No, I mean, it's just, like I said, you know, it's going to bring up some memories, but I think we'll overcome that, and I think everything will be good. But we're going to move on anyway, I'm sure.
Yeah. You still have evidence from this case,
right?
Here at the sheriff's office.
Yeah, we have to. As long as she's incarcerated, we will keep the evidence. We have it. We have it stored. Yeah, sure do.
Is that? Do you have to go back and maybe pull out some of this evidence? Like, what happens with this parole hearing?
Well, I mean, I don't think they would ask for any evidence. I mean, it's basically she's been convicted, and it is what it is. But we just have to keep that evidence just in case there's some type of motion being made, or it goes back to court for some reason, early release or something. Anything that would be pertaining to the court situation.
We reflect back on this time. What else do you remember from either that time or how Union County, the city might deal with this as this kind of comes up again?
I think it'll be interesting to some people, the younger people that have heard about it but never really took the time to look into it. And I'm sure with her coming up for parole and interviews like this one, that they're going to watch and they're going to ask more questions and probably look into it, and they'll probably ask their parents about it. Because this, like most of the people that work for me here in the sheriff's office, they were either small children at the time, or even I was talking to one girl. She was actually pregnant at the time, but I just asked her about it. She was pregnant at the time with her first child. When all this happened. So it left a mark on some of the people of Union County, and I think with all this coming up, her coming up parole, there'll be a lot more questions. I don't think it's going to bring up anything bad for Union County. It'll just bring up old memories, and hopefully that'll go away with the. If she don't make parole, then she's where she needs to be, and I think we'll put it to rest until she comes up again.
I know it created a little division in the community when all of this happened because of who she accused of doing it.
Right.
She accused a black man.
That's correct.
Of carjacking her. Mm-hmm. And that did kind of create a divide. Has that changed, or has that divide been?
Yeah, at the time that happened, there was some divide and divisiveness, but as we moved on as a community and as Union County, we've moved on. We don't have that problem here. That's not something that we even think about around here. I mean, it is what it is. She made that accusation. It was wrong, but I think after time of getting that settled and let's moving on with it, we don't have that problem. The division's not here now. We have a great community relationship with the sheriff's office and the other communities. No matter what community it is, I mean that's what we do. We work hard in the community to make Union a safe place to live. That's our goal here. Our goal is not to have division and to make enemies. We don't want to put people in jail. We want to be in the community and work with them. But some people cause that for themselves. But as far as that being a problem in Union County, I don't see it at all, because that is important. That is important that we get in the community and work together as one and not pull from one side to the other. We don't do that.
And they don't do that. And even then we'll probably know more about the case than probably meets the eye. When we come back, the father of the murder convict speaks out for the very first time ahead of the hearing. You'll hear what happens. Please stay with us. Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and right now you probably have those Thanksgiving meal kits. What are they? How can you use them? Take a look.
Turkey Day is just around the corner, and for many of us, convenience and cost savings are the keys to Thanksgiving bliss. This year, major retailers including Walmart, Target, and Wegmans are taking all the heavy lifting out of the holiday with pre-assembled ingredient kits featuring turkey and all the traditional trimmings. Chef Lauren Kovas showed me how these value-packed kits can take all the fuss and hard work out of Thanksgiving.
Holiday Thanksgiving kits help you keep on a budget, give you ideas, and kind of pull the whole holiday together.
This kit comes with a 22-pound turkey, potatoes, and even a decadent pecan pie for dessert. You can feed a family of 4 for under $100.
We're gonna make a cranberry aioli.
If you're feeling creative, just jazz up the ingredients and make something extra special.
Look
at that, look at that. Using stovetop stuffing from Target's kit, Lauren showed me how to make these mouth-watering stuffing balls with cranberry aioli.
Oh my God.
Good. Fancy. If pre-made kits aren't for you, supermarket tycoon Stu Leonard has some other tips to save you money on your Thanksgiving grocery haul.
Go on and look at the food store's app that you're looking at, because you can get some deals right there. The second thing is buy private label. If you're going to put chips out or you're going to put crackers out with some cheese, you don't have to buy these name brands. You can save 20% right off the bat by going private label.
You can also get your turkey from a local farm, where this year, big birds are back.
This is Double Brook Farm in Hopewell, New Jersey. They will sell, all told, about 1,500 birds this year.
Gatherings are getting bigger than they were the last couple of years, so that's probably right. We're seeing more demand for heavier birds.
That's a lot of birds. So great advice for you to help out for Turkey Day. But not if you're one of the 1,000 children that are left without permanent homes. If you were to see tents all around your community,
hundreds of local families left with nowhere to.
If you drove around your neighborhood and you saw children being left in it, and you saw a family of children with mom and dad in a tent, what would you do? Would you call the police to have them removed for illegal camping? Help them out with some food and water and a place to live? Or would you just drive by and do nothing? Well, there's more than 1,000 children in Buncombe County. And as we're about to show you, those families are without a home, which can really help if your family's homeless. Take a look.
Karen Zakalak is investigating what's being done to help them out.
This is where the kids are sleeping when they do sleep in here, because sometimes they're not even with us because it's so small.
There's not a lot of room for 2 adults and 2 kids inside this camper, but after losing everything in the storm, it's all Dana Wunsch has.
And then me and Jesse's bedroom back there, we got our clothes all thrown underneath there. It is, it's simple, it's simplified living, but we're making it work.
She admits that without supportive relatives and GoFundMe money, they'd be homeless.
I really don't know. I'm probably sleeping in a tent like some of these other families are doing.
Right now, her 8th grader mostly stays here, but her 4th grader is staying with family to be closer to school.
When you have children, it's just a lot harder, and every day I'm just wondering, what is tomorrow going to be like? Are we going to be able to find a long-term place to live that we can afford?
Across Asheville, the Russells are living in their car with their teenage son and 2 dogs. Fortunately, their other teenager, who's still in school, is able to stay with friends.
Since the storm, we've identified 878 homeless students.
878 new homeless students in Buncombe County. That's in addition to the 274 students identified before the storm. That's 4 times as many. 1,152 kids without a permanent home. Some living in tents, cars, and campers.
I think there's a very high number of families that's not going to have somewhere to go back to. A lot of our families were renting, and that rental is now gone.
An extra storage room with the Buncombe County Family Resource Center is now filled with new clothes, even shoes donated for those families. Shannon Boyd says the biggest need right now is monetary donations and housing. Some families are staying here at the Gold's Gym, now run by the Western Carolina Rescue Ministries.
How hard is it going to be to find
places, especially once these shelters close, for all of these families.
Yeah, it's going to be very hard. You know, a lot of the solutions that are coming up with aren't permanent solutions. And so we're just kicking it down the road right now.
Michael Woods says there's still about 80 people living here, getting medical care, food, and help finding any available housing. He believes since Helene, the homeless population has grown by about 30 to 50% and doesn't know where those displaced will go.
It puts especially elected officials and those that are in our city and county government, it makes them have to deal with this.
We went to the City of Asheville's homeless manager, Emily Ball, to ask what's being done.
Post-storm, I feel like it's just scary to think about how many more people won't have a place to live. How does the city respond to that? What do we do?
Well, I think it's the right question. I think it's again, housing stock is a really key strategy here, and there is the Housing Recovery Task Force through the county is working hard on that.
Ball tells us a housing recovery task force has been set up. According to the city, housing meetings and damage assessments are underway. The city is providing more than $2 million for rental assistance and home repairs, and there have been approvals for using federal and state funds for temporary housing. In addition, $6.5 million from the state's Back at Home program is on the way to help victims find housing. But those facing winter with kids and without a permanent home wonder if it's enough.
The homeless population here is already ridiculous, and there were already people without homes, and now to have all these children and families without somewhere stable to live, I mean, you just got to find some kind of solution.
Karen Zakalak, News 13.
Section 8. Section 8. That's what needs to happen here. Section 8. If you've been trying to get a Section 8 voucher from your state, that's what needs to happen here. Section 8 vouchers need to happen in your state. If you don't have it, talk to somebody. Talk to your congressman and say, hey, we need Section 8 vouchers. Because it can really happen to somebody who's homeless. And it can really, it's a lot for people who have lost a home and would really like a home. So do your best to do your part when it comes to helping out homeless. That way you'll know what to do when the time's right. We'll be right back. Alright, we're probably not going to do a second look. We'll probably do a second look on a Saturday or whatever. But tonight's Viral Break is going to be all about from Ray Williams Johnson as he looks at all the viral videos that have been uploaded on YouTube. Take a look from 2011. Mashed potatoes.
Alright guys, the show's starting. You gotta get up. You gotta get out of here. Alright, go, get up, go. Get up. So this first video is a pretty accurate portrayal of what happens when mom goes out and dad is left to babysit. That's horrible. And why does that kid have a bag over his head? What is he, my date? And how come the dad doesn't even try to stop him when he's running? He just like sits there and keeps the camera rolling. And you know, I have a feeling that as soon as the camera was off, the dad was like, come on, kid. If you're old enough to walk, you're old enough to walk it off. Now bring me another beer. Mow the lawn while you're at it. Don't tell your mother about this. So we all know that Tiger Woods hasn't had much luck with his golf game lately. Turns out all he needed was a little comfort food.
Big success for the birdie in the Eagle, which ended his round yesterday. Oh, this is a beauty.
Did that guy just say mashed potatoes? Yeah, of course he did, you fag. Did we all not just watch the same f***ing video? No, this video's of a golf tournament on ESPN. It's got about 60,000 views so far, and like, even the announcer is surprised that someone yelled mashed potatoes.
There's the stare. What was that? Did somebody scream mashed potatoes? That was mashed.
No, we really shouldn't joke about this video because the guy who yelled mashed potatoes has a serious form of Tourette's where he doesn't yell like curse words, he yells side dishes. So please, don't laugh while we take a minute to explore this man's reality. Cream corn! Little bowl of fruit! Mixed green salad with goat cheese, pecans, and a side of balsamic vinaigrette! Oh, good. It looks like we can cross making fun of Tourette's syndrome off the list of reasons of why we're all going to hell. Have you guys ever tried to take a cat on a car ride? Usually they like freak the hell out. The cat in the next video, he's just in awe. So this video got 700,000 views in a week, by far the biggest video. And if you think about it, if you're a cat, this like blows your mind. If you're a cat, your world is pretty small. I mean, you got your litter box, your food dish, and your little scratchy pole thingy. It's called a cat scratcher, you gay homo. So a ride in the car, it might as well be like a trip to the moon. I gotta admit though, the magic behind this video is just how happy the cat seems. I mean, I wonder what he's amazed by. What is he looking at, like the world's biggest ball of yarn? Like, is he watching a commercial fishing video? Or maybe something a little more exciting. Or maybe this little guy got into his owner's special stash of weed, marijuana, pot, reefer brownies. Whoa, man. Have you ever, like, figured out, I mean, like, I'd poop in my litter box every day. I mean, I put it in there, and then, like, and the next day, it's just gone. I mean, where does that poop go? Man, whoa, are you sure those special marijuana, weed, pot, reefer brownies had weed in them? But you know what else enjoys a long car ride? Mashed potatoes! The comment question of the day, which comes from a user named Bam, and he said,
Hey Ray, my comment question of the day is, how do you stand out in a crowd?
So, how do you stand out in a crowd? Leave room to your creative responses in the...
All right, here's one more. It's one of my favorites.
The mouth or... What's happening, y'all? Now, I don't want to get your hopes up, but you should be pretty excited about this first video. It's got a fat chick rolling around in a convertible. Oh, wait, that's a cow, and he's rolling around in the trunk of a car. Now, is it just me, or was that guy all like... Yeah, it wasn't just me, right? Yeah, and it doesn't seem very safe that the guy filming is riding a motorcycle and holding a camera and laughing his balls off. But I guess that leads me to the most obvious question. Why in the fuck was there a cow in the back of that car? Yeah, bud! I mean, wouldn't it be easier just to buy a gallon of milk? I mean, where could they possibly be going? The slaughterhouse? Now, yeah, I am confused about the context of this video, but I will admit, though, that kind of reminds me of my ex-girlfriend. What? I mean, she was kind of a big girl. What? I mean, get me drunk enough and I will f the fattest girl in the book. Anyway, I am so dumbfounded as to why there is a cow in the trunk of a car. Does anybody know? I mean, I guess it's one of those things you gotta be, like, totally f***ed up to understand. Like, I guess if you get high, then you'll understand it, like...
Oh, I get it. It's a cow in the trunk of a car. It's like, whoa.
So this next video is the viral hit of the week, getting about 2 million views in 8 days. Mother, that's a lot. Now this one may start out slow, but don't let that fool you, because once the bass kicks in... Holy f***, it's like the entire room has epilepsy. And not to sound like a crotchety old man, but this sounds exactly like the sound system my neighbors have. Yeah, I'm talking to you guys in apartment 504. I mean, I'm just saying, turn that shit down. The walls are thin enough here. I can already hear you guys f***ing each other all night. I don't want to have to hear your music too. You know, this seems like the appropriate place to let all this out, doesn't it? Anyway, as you can see from the video, this 2,000-watt sound system is just over the top. And yes, I do believe that this is the first time that the Black Eyed Peas have actually rocked the house. You know, I'm really feeling the boom boom. Not a big fan of the POW. And yeah, you know, I admire those guys' hard work, but you ever think that there's maybe an excessive amount of bass coming from those speakers? No? I'm the only one? I mean, yeah, I like bass in my music too, but I don't need it to be so strong that it causes me to piss my pants and forget my first name for a half hour. And I love how they spend all this time and money on this advanced speaker system, yet they're still carrying around a cell phone from the early 90s. And for the love of God, could someone please save those cookies? I mean, I'm just saying.
You shouldn't let good snacks go to waste like that.
Now, we've all seen plenty of stupid pet videos on YouTube. I'm going to show you this bird that has quite the mouth on it. Now, before we watch this, let me just say that normally I bleep out the curse words on equals 3. Because, you know, I like to keep things family friendly. But in this case, I'm going to let you hear everything the parrot has to say, mainly because it's freaking hilarious. Why do you fucking not think you don't poop? You know what a fucking know is shit. Fucking know you fucking scrub.
Dude, I'm sorry.
Let's just fucking mouth. Woo, that parrot's got quite the mouth or beak on him, whatever. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is this bird actually telling its owner not to shit on the rug? Yeah, if your pets are telling you not to shit on the rug, you may have a problem. Yeah, me and the dog were talking, and we decided that if you ever shit on the rug again, we're gonna rub your nose in it and throw you out on the porch for the night. But seriously, man, you can't let your bird talk to you like that. You better throw some barbecue sauce on that bastard and put him in his place. Does that bird have like a form of Tourette's or what? Now, I love this video personally, even though it only got like a measly 12,000 views. Their banter is hilarious, especially since you know that that bird is just repeating things he heard earlier. But I guess it's one of those things that you gotta be just totally messed up to understand, like,
Oh, I get it now. It's a bird and he's cursing and it's like,
Any whore. There's a new Your Favorite Martian song, guys. Don't forget to check it out. As always, we appreciate your support. And of course, don't forget about the comment question of the day, which comes from a username Bam. And they said,
Hi Ray, our comment question of the day is, what's that on your face?
alright, you heard him. So, what's on your face? Leave your interesting or creative responses. See, I can hear them. That's bullshit. Well, leave your interesting or creative responses in the comment section.
Hello.
Or on Facebook, Twitter, Google+. But thanks for watching today's episode of Equals 3. I'm Ray William Johnson, and I approve this message. So tell me, guys, why are you naked?
That's Give 'em Break for this Friday. We'll see you again for Give 'em Break Saturday night. For all of us here at YouTube, and give me a break. As I always say, stop bullying, speak up. Concentration, not strength. No jaywalking. Good night. And I'll see you Saturday.